The apogee of empire, 1512 to 1590 Part 4. The conflict with the Portuguese continued intermittently. In 1555, in order to strengthen the Ottoman position in the Red Sea, the Sultan ordered Özdemir Ulu Osman Pasha to organize the province of Abyssinia, including the ports of Sauikin and Massawa. As with the provinces of Al-Hassa and Yemen, the revenues of Abyssinia did not cover the costs of maintaining the garrisons. Nevertheless, it contributed to the defensive frontier against the Portuguese. It was presumably, too, to strengthen the Ottoman position in the Gulf, as well as to secure control of the lucrative pearl fishing that, in 1559, the Governor-General of Al-Hassa invaded the island of Bahrain, provoking in turn a Portuguese attack on his forces and a humiliating retreat. By 1560, it had become clear that the Portuguese could not evict the Ottomans from Basra, Al-Hassa and Qatif at the head of the Gulf, nor from the Red Sea. The Ottomans, however, could not break the blockade at Hormuz, nor defeat the Portuguese in the ocean. Instead, to ensure the continuation of trade, they resorted to negotiation. In 1562, the Governor-General of Basra sent an envoy to Hormuz to discuss with the Portuguese the resumption of trade through the Gulf, while in 1564 the Sultan himself wrote to the King of Portugal, demanding that he ensure the passage on land and sea for the people and merchants of the Ottoman Empire trading to and from the lands under Portuguese domination and Apos. Small-scale hostilities nonetheless continued. The Ottomans, however, were never able to control the sea routes from South Asia, and the revival of the spice trade probably had as much to do with the limitations of Portuguese resources as with Ottoman strength. To the Sultan, these events on the fringes of the Southern Ocean probably seemed unimportant next to his major concerns with Iran, Hungary and the Mediterranean, and it was Hungary and the Mediterranean that were to dominate his final years. He had first, however, to face a civil war within his own realms. From about 1550, the death of the elderly Suleiman had seemed imminent, leading, inevitably, to a competition for the succession. In 1553, he preempted what he believed to be a plot against his throne by executing his son, Prince Mustafa. This left two challengers, the Princes Bayezid and Selim. In 1558, believing that his father favored Selim, Bayezid rebelled, forcing Suleiman to confront him with an army effectively under the command of the Vizier Sokolu Mehmed Pasha. The Sultan's men defeated Bayezid near Konya in May 1559, compelling the prince to take flight to Iran, where he became the subject of negotiations between Shah and Sultan. Finally, in 1562, when Thomas B. had secured a treaty of peace and financial compensation from the Sultan, he allowed an Ottoman executioner to enter the prince's cell and end his life. The agreement with Thomas B. in 1562 coincided with the conclusion of an 8-year peace with Ferdinand and left Suleiman free to prepare his final campaigns. Piala Pasha's incursions into the western Mediterranean in the 1550s had extended the reach of his fleet and offered the vision of further conquest. An essential preliminary, however, was the conquest of Malta which, at the sea's narrowest point, dominated the passage from the eastern to the western Mediterranean. The siege of 1565 was, however, unsuccessful, and in 1566, as if in compensation for the defeat at Malta, Piala Pasha took the Genoese island of Chios. It is, however, significant that Chios is in the Aegean and lay off the Ottoman coastline. Its conquest marked the end of Ottoman maritime expansion towards the west. Suleiman's last campaign was against Hungary. In 1564, Ferdinand died. His son, Maximilian, wished to renew the peace, but largely in order to leave himself free to pursue his claim to Transylvania. In 1565, with most of his forces engaged in the siege of Malta, Suleiman could only order the Governor-General of Temesvar to undertake a limited incursion into Transylvania. A major campaign followed in 1566. In April, the elderly Sultan left Istanbul, carried for the most part in a litter, sending the Vizier Pertev Pasha to occupy the disputed lands to the east of the Tisa. The Sultan himself laid siege to Sigitvar. He died on the field of battle in 1566, 2 days before the fortress capitulated. During his 46-year reign, Suleiman had added to the empire territory in eastern Anatolia, Iraq, the Gulf and the Red Sea, the Aegean, Moldavia, and Hungary. Some of these territories cost more in defense than they provided in revenue, but all served to emphasize Suleiman's status as the ruler of one of the world's greatest empires. Ottoman territory was to expand further during the reigns of his two successors, but the empire was never again to play the international role that it had done at the height of Suleiman's power. The French kings Francis I and Henry II had sought him as an ally, as had, briefly, the Protestant princes of Germany. He had provided artillery and gunners to the Muslim rulers of India and Ethiopia, and even, at the end of his reign, dispatched ships, artillery and artillerymen to Aceh, in Sumatra. At the same time, the campaigns of Suleiman's reign had shown that there were geographical constraints to imperial ambition. Suleiman's campaigns against the Safavids in 1548-9 and 1553-4 had shown that the hostile terrain in the borderlands between the two empires was sufficient to frustrate Ottoman aggression, even when the Safavids offered no military resistance. In the south, the Isthmus of Suez was a barrier to the import of Mediterranean timber and other materials for the construction of ships in the Red Sea, and to the passage of ships from one sea to the other. More importantly, ignorance of how to construct armed, ocean-going vessels made it impossible for the Ottomans to challenge the Portuguese in the Indian Ocean. These were problems that were to confront Suleiman's successors. Selim II, 1566-74, was Suleiman's only surviving son and so enjoyed an undisputed succession. He was very different from his father, having, it seems, a peaceable disposition and a distaste for affairs of state. Throughout his reign, he delegated much of the responsibility of government to his Grand Vizier and son-in-law, Sokollu Mehmed Pasha. At the time of Selim's accession, Sokollu faced three immediate problems: the war in Hungary, a revolt by the Zaidi Imam of Yemen which had deprived the Ottomans of control of most of the province, 48, and an Arab revolt in the marshes to the north of Basra. Sokollu acted decisively in all three cases. In 1567, a river-borne expedition at last pacified the leader of the marsh Arabs, Ibn Ulayyan. The rebellion ended when the Sultan formally bestowed on him the title of governor, a device which the Ottomans used to secure the loyalty of local dynasties on the fringes of the empire. The revolt in Yemen took 3 years to suppress. The operation began with the dismissal of its commander, Lala Mustafa Pasha, and his replacement by the Governor-General of Egypt, Khoja, the elder, Shinan Pasha. Shinan Pasha captured first Taiz, and then Aden, in an assault by land and sea. In 1569, the Imam's stronghold at Sana fell, and the campaign ended in the following year with the capture of Kawakaban. In Hungary, Sokollu in 1568 concluded an 8-year peace with Maximilian, on condition that the emperor pay a yearly tribute of 30,000 ducats. It was perhaps the war in Yemen that led Sokollu, in 1568, to order the construction of a canal linking Suez with the Mediterranean. The project would have made possible the dispatch of ships, troops and war materials directly from the Mediterranean to the Red Sea, and the easy transport of supplies to the naval arsenal at Suez. This would have benefited the Ottomans both in the war in Yemen and in the continuing hostilities with the Portuguese. The plan, however, failed, as did a similar project in 1569.49. The immediate stimulus for this was the Russian occupation of Astrakhan on the Volga, near the point where the river empties into the Caspian. The Russians did not directly threaten Ottoman territory, but rather presented an alternative focus for the loyalty of the Khan of the Crimea, who was a vassal of the Ottoman Sultan. Sokollu planned, therefore, to cut a canal between the Don and the Volga at the narrowest point between the two rivers, enabling him to send a fleet directly from the Black Sea to Astrakhan and the Caspian Sea. The project would also permit the dispatch of troops against Iran, bypassing the mountain barriers in eastern Anatolia and the Caucasus. In August 1569, the Ottoman Tatar army camped at Perevallik and began work. However, they had completed only 1/3 of the canal, when the shortening days and increasing cold began to hamper the excavation. In the meantime, the commander of the expedition, Qasim Pasha, had raided the district of Astrakhan, but the city itself had been too strong to attack. In September, Qasim Pasha ordered a retreat. About half his army perished in the swampy steppe lands, and then a fire in the provisions depot at Azov meant that there was no possibility of continuing the campaign in the following year. The viziers had conceived both canal schemes as a way of overcoming the geographical barriers to further conquest. With the failure of both projects, Ottoman military and maritime power continued to operate within the old constraints.